earthquakes, more floods, more fires, more everything.
I do.
Yeah, you do.
It's my other one.
We're getting closer. Yes, I think.
Well, should we get into the worksheet?
How many years,
Oh, go ahead.
how many different groups does Paul have that come to that camp? Is this the only week that he has to worry about people at that camp?
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, so we rent, it's called Assembly Park Camp. The people who own it are from the Assembly of God churches.
Okay, I figured that.
They own it. We just rent it for the week. And right now we have just 1 week out of the year. We're going to seriously consider trying to split into 2 camps, just because of our numbers.
Nice number this year, didn't you?
Yeah. So
Does that mean you would be gone 2 weeks then instead of 1?
if I serve both weeks, yes. And it wouldn't. Scheduling wise, it's interesting because of the openings that they have. So it might not be like a full 2 weeks. We typically get done on Friday. So then we would possibly start up Saturday for the next. And if you're starting on a Saturday, then you can end a little earlier because that camp has other people that use it. And so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be like a full 2 weeks. It'd be more week and a half, you know.
Is it on a big lake?
It's on a nice lake. I wouldn't call it a big lake. I mean,
I
it's
saw pictures somewhere.
bigger than Lake Toma.
It looked like you couldn't see the other side of the lake, so I thought it's Lake Michigan.
Oh, no, you can.
You could see the other side?
Yeah, it was probably just an angle or something.
It's instead of being round, it's more like long.
It's got islands. I would love to go out and fish it. I just haven't.
I got to thinking about that. I thought, the Baptist camp used to be on Hartman Creek up at Wapaka.
Okay.
I wonder if that's even still going.
I don't know.
I think when it just broke, so much broke apart. But I know
Where is it at?
It was up by Wapaka on Hartman Creek. I took Melanie up there one time with a friend and dropped them off. It was very rustic. The houses were very rustic. And the grass hadn't been mowed, so it was real high. And Lee's mom went with me, and I almost didn't leave Melanie because I didn't. But she had a
Here,
good time.
it's always
I was
advertised
just
on
thinking,
DCY.
That's Trail Ridge Camp. That's Hillsboro.
little cots, which are
Yeah. Yeah. So the one that we go to is go north, and then keep going north. It's the lake that it's on is Lake Minising. It's in the Lake Nebagabon area.
So how far?
A little over 3 hours. So if we go to make a town run or something, we go to Superior.
Oh, okay.
So
That way then.
so we're pretty close to up there. But it's beautiful. And, we typically never have to worry about too hot of weather.
I bet not.
It can. We've had a couple times, but mostly no.
There's a lot of trees too.
Yeah, we got a lot of trees. But we're kind of bulging at the seams. So
Is there a dominant church that uses that? When you go up there, you're with other churches, right?
well, I wouldn't say churches, it's people from other churches.
Right.
So, like we have a big group from our church go up there to serve, but we're not necessarily, Open Door isn't necessarily as official church connected. It's just the people. So, and that's the same. So you've got a wide variety of people from different denominations, which makes it very interesting. But typically we haven't had any problems with things. We try to focus on the main doctrines and not, I'm sure if we started talking about, Calvinism, Arminianism, things like that, we'd have a wide variety. But
I thought it was neat that Messianic Jewish people that were there.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet them. I didn't know about it till, I think Sarah asked me about it when we were up at camp, but so I'm a cabin leader, so I had 7 17-year-olds and 2 16-year-old boys. And then I did Bible teaching. So between, a cabin leader will keep you busy,
Is there any wandering generalities as far as mostly small town people? Do you get many from Milwaukee or Minneapolis?
I would guess that most people are from the rural areas. Yeah.
No,
We get, yeah.
There was a Jewish camp on Lake, at Webster, Wisconsin, on one side of Devils
Oh, yeah?
Lake. Did you know that?
No.
My sister used to have a home on Devil's Lake, and across the lake was the Jewish camp.
Huh.
But it's-
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
don't think, I suppose because it's so close to Minneapolis, just down 35.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to go to the Webster County Fair every year.
Was it a day?
We lived in Burnett County, so that was the fair that we would go to. So my first year, I was 10 years old, and I brought a tomcat to the fair.
Really?
Yeah. That was my cat. Took my cat to the fair. And the judge kind of laughed because there's not a class. You have, female and neutered. And he wasn't neutered.
Was behaved.
He behaved, and the judge was very gracious. And I got a blue ribbon because he was the only one.
And you were probably 10 years old?
Yeah,
You know,
that-
many, many years ago, I had a family that I worked with, and I really liked this young man, and I got to meet his family, and we talked about the fact that, his wife was pregnant, and, you should probably do a baby shower, because you do a baby shower for female employees, you should maybe do a baby shower for a male employee, right? We're not non-discriminatory. And so we got to meet Mom and the little boy. Well, the little boy that was 3 at the baby shower just joined the Army. He's going to be a chaplain's assistant. Well, then a couple years later, they wanted me, I was hatching some chickens, and I gave the baby, some baby chickens, and he's been in chickens ever since.
Huh.
And he won a whole bunch of prizes
Yeah.
for his chickens at the Elroy County Fair.
Yeah. County fairs are great for kids to take critters and stuff as long as they're
But it's been-
well supervised to keep them, because nowadays it can be a pretty sketchy thing going on,
Well, I know
but
they wanted to have chickens in Toma, but Toma City Council wouldn't let them have chickens.
Oh.
So then they bought a house down by Camp Douglas, and but it's been fun to be part of that family's life and watch the boys grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Any questions on things before we go into our worksheet?
Is that where we're going?
Well, if there's no questions, I just didn't
All right, with me.
know if there's things going on or not. Yeah, we had, they could literally do the next several years just on creation at camp. There's so much to cover. You can't do it in 4, even if you got a full hour, which you don't, sessions. How can you go over all of creation and the arguments? Like I said, just the age of the earth, the fossil records, dinosaurs in the Bible, the Garden of Eden, what was it like before sin came into the world, and things like that. There's a lot to cover, yeah.
How indoctrinated are most of the kids? I mean, do you get some pushback?
I just know about my class, and in my class, there was one that just kind of voiced that she wasn't sure. Otherwise, the majority of the class were believed in creation, biblical creation. So it just, I don't know about the other classes, because I had 10 people, so 10 out of 130 some. You know, just like my cabin. My cabin was every one of them that I know of was raised in a Christian home. And
Would you not expect at that age that you had, that they would be starting to flesh out where they are in their own faith journey though?
oh, definitely, definitely. But I think it's a big difference between kids today and kids 20 years ago. You know, you go back 20, 30 years, and the creation, I'll call it a movement, was kind of unknown. You know, 30 years ago, did you hear who Ken Ham was?
Yeah.
Now, he was around, he was ministering, but you just didn't hear about him. And there's a lot of other creationists, but it didn't have the momentum and the popularity that it does now. I mean, most people have heard, if not gone to, like the Ark Encounter, the Creation Museum, things like that. So it's a lot different now than what it used to be. You know, if someone just grew up in a Christian home, in a typical church, and went to public school, more than likely they're only going to hear one side.
Yeah.
You know, where now I think it's a lot different. I'm sure that there's a lot of churches that don't touch on creation and don't teach on it, but the information is out there. You know, so I think it's a lot different than what it used to be. So a lot of the kids, they were it wasn't a shock, the ones I had and ones I talked to, of the whole concept of God created everything in 6 days and rest on the seventh, and the earth being not as old as is what they've been told in school, if they went to school. Some of them are homeschooled, you know. So it's nice to see that there's been a change in that, because I think it would have been 97 when I was introduced to more of the creation. Not that I didn't read it in the Bible, but as far as the arguments for a literal 6-day creation, young earth, you know. So, yeah.
Actually, you are the one that introduced me to the 6,000 year creation. I was raised with the whole, you know,
Yeah.
millions of years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's there's access, way more access now. So, yeah, because back in the day, you know, it's not like you looked something up on the internet. You didn't have it, right?
I know we were talking about visiting the park a few years back when we were on vacation. And you know, we probably are gonna have to plan in the future years, taking another group, because our kids that went down to the Ark have kind of grown up, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we'll have to.
Yeah, that was a fun trip to the Ark Encounter and the Creation
I mean, I
Museum.
think you can hear the story, but I think when you actually see this massive boat,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
What really impressed me was the way the animals looked, because you don't think about them looking as prehistoric, kind of, you know, like, think of the animals as if they look today, and it was totally different.
yeah, yeah. And then the whole Creation Museum too. That's,
It's awesome.
yeah. And they're doing another exhibit. Which one is that? Are they doing like the Tower of Babel or something, or?
They're gonna work on that.
Okay,
It'll be interesting.
yeah,
I don't think, I don't know why, but I didn't enjoy the Creation Museum as much as the Ark, but I think, I think our time was limited and we kind of hurried through.
yeah. Well, we spent a day at each, which you could easily spend more than that.
They were having an ice storm the day.
Oh, no.
Is it open year round?
As far as I know, I don't think they close it.
Or busy in the summer?
I'm sure they're more busy in the summer.
we stopped on our way to Arizona. We went down that way. We made a big circle. We went down to Iowa, and as we were kind of in Iowa, we stopped at the visitor center, and the lady at the visitor center said, "You'll have to let me go because I gotta go get my grandkids from school because they're canceling school because there's an ice storm coming." And we got into some of it before we got out. But, yeah, and then we stopped in Louisiana and spent the night with Luke Purdy, that was raised in this church family. And then from there, then we made the rest of the circle to Arizona. We wanted to go see Luke, so.
I got a basic question.
Yeah.
I never thought about this. Why did God create man?
The purpose seems to be to have a relationship with man and a way to reveal his love. And now I can't point you to the exact verse, but concepts like we say God is love, and if you can't just say I love, you have to have an object, right, to love.
Well, the reason I say that is if someone ever asked me, I wouldn't have an answer. And then they followed up by saying, well, why didn't he invent man a million years before that? Or what triggered him?
Well, okay, so there's two things you mentioned there. One is the concept of time. A million years ago, there was not a million years ago before God created. So when God spoke the world into existence, that's when time started, which is hard to wrap our minds around. But before that, there was not time.
What do you,
So there wasn't a million years before.
prior to creation, the Holy Triangle still existed, or that?
Always existed, yes.
So am I wrong assuming that they were the only three that existed, however that existence took place? I'm trying to figure out what they do all the time.
Play sequence.
I mean, always being here, and then somebody come up and say, we should make more of us, or who the instigator was. I mean, it's that part's always skipped, the initiation of creation.
Okay, so we can go to Genesis 1:26.
Is there ever any reference to pre-Genesis? Never mentioned?
There's a verse about before the foundation of the earth, so before the creation, but
But heaven still
it's-
existed, right? That was,
God created it. It didn't exist. There was God, that period. And then God created, in the beginning, there you have time. God created, you have what we would call energy, the heavens and the earth, space and matter. So you have four things mentioned in that first verse. You have time, you have created, we might say energy, but even if you just didn't want to say that, you'd still have heaven and earth, space and matter. That's what we have today as far as time, space and matter, energy.
So basically, God created this dimension.
Yes. Before that, none of this existed. Time didn't exist, and it's kind of hard to grasp. What do you mean there wasn't time? Because we are trapped in time.
I think Elon Musk is even believing in a creator, but he would be the one that would ask questions like, where did God exist prior to?
Yeah. Well, any person, say like Elon, who his intelligence is definitely there. And if he takes the time to start contemplating those things, you can't get away that there had to be someone who created. You may not believe that it's the God of the Bible, but it had to be created. Yeah, no. The term that they use is a cause without a cause. We look at a train going by, and what makes that boxcar move? Well, you can't just say the one in front of it pulls it. Well, what good is that answer? Well, what makes that one move? You have to get to the locomotive that is moving everything, that nothing is pulling it. And that's the whole, if you look at, where did man come from? Oh, we came from this. Well, where did that come? Well, it came from this. You get to the locomotive sooner or later. Even if they say, well, all the matter, okay, where'd all the matter come from? Where'd the energy come from? Where did all of these things come from? You have to get back to, there had to be something that didn't have to be created, that started it all, And so there's a lot of physicists and scientists that have went down that road and realized evolution falls short. Even if it was true, it still doesn't answer the questions. I had a physics teacher I wasn't in physics class, he was teaching the Bible, but he was a physics teacher, and he used to always say that to really find the atheist, you have to go to the philosophy class, not the biology, not the science classes, because the more they study, the more they realize there had to be a creator. And so anyway, when you get to purpose, God says, let us make, in verse 126, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So he mentions, let them have dominion. So dominion is a position. It is a job to do. It's to rule over. But it also says our image and our likeness. Those are two separate things. And the way I believe that it's saying is the image of God, if we're created in the image of God, if God is 3 in 1, then humans are 3 in 1. Where we have a mind, so we have an intellect, we have emotion, we have a will. It's makes our decisions. It tells the body what to do, how to, lift your hand, take a drink of coffee. That's the will that gets done, or the deciding factor. I think that is similar to like God the Father. We have a physical body. Well, that's what Christ was given, as a physical body. And then you have God breathed into man the breath of life. And I think that's like God's Spirit. So the original man was 3 in 1. And I think that mankind. But then it says something else, after our likeness. Well, God had perfect fellowship within the Trinity. There was nothing that stood in the way of that relationship. And that's what I see God gave man, is a perfect relationship with himself. He could walk with God, talk with God. There was nothing that separated him from God. Now, that all went downhill at the fall. And man is defaced. Man has been defiled with sin. So it's not the same as it was in the garden. And I think that comes out in Genesis 5:3, when it says, Adam lived 130 years, begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. So the descendants of Adam were not necessarily in the image and likeness of God, but in the image and likeness of Adam. So it's like if you have a perfect copy and you make a copy, that's great. But if you have a perfect copy and something happens to it, then every copy after that is going to be messed up. And that's what you had with Adam. He had a perfect relationship with God, but that was marred. That was defiled, defaced, however you want to say it. But as far as the purpose, so one is to have fellowship with man. The other, though, that I think is, was it Romans 5:8?
It's just the concept of physicality, something physical when you're a spirit. That has to be invented. Something
Right.
you can touch.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Romans 5:8, but God commendeth or demonstrates his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So one of the things that God is doing is he's demonstrating, he's showing, he's proving his love. Like I said, if you love, you have to have an object. And so he created man to have a relationship, and he also created man to demonstrate his love. Now, so love needs an object. Love also needs a way to show the depth and the length, to measure it, how much. And I think you see that with him, what it says here, by having Christ die for the ungodly, for the sinners, for his enemies. He's demonstrating, he's showing it. So, I think that's, yeah.
Actually, I have some questions.
Okay.
Let's see. My glasses on. So there was the tree, the knowledge of good and evil, and then there was also the tree of life.
Yes.
These are different trees, correct?
Correct. Totally different trees. After the time of Noah's flood, I think the tree of knowledge of good and evil was taken care of, destroyed, buried. The tree of life, though, will appear again later on.
Okay. And after the fall, did the tree of life stay in the Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
And that's why the angels were at the gate protecting it.
Yes. Yeah. So there's angels and a flaming sword. And the reason was because if man would continually be able to take of the tree of life, he would not die. So he would live forever in his sinful condition, which is not a good thing. If you could imagine how sinful man would be, sooner or later you would have someone like a Stalin or a Hitler or something like that taking over and being able to live forever. And just, yeah. So it was to keep man away from the tree.
It's just amazing if you really dive into it. The swords, angels with swords. The whole concept of defense, offense had to be invented.
Yeah.
Didn't exist.
Right. Yeah, so I like to call it the first lightsaber. That says a flaming sword turned every way. But
Something like a Tommy Joe.
I mean, theoretically.
thanks.
It could have gone the other way. Satan was the first. And he created an evil world and everything evil, where God's the opposite end of that spectrum.
Well, Satan didn't create, he corrupted.
I mean, theoretically, if it wasn't like it is,
Oh,
and you had a bad guy,
oh, sure. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
Alright, another question. The punishment for the serpent, was he not already on his belly? Wilmington says that he had wings and feet, so was he more like a dragon?
Yeah.
It's creepy, I turn this
Yeah.
off.
Her,
He was answering me.
yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
That's
That's because you said the word Satan.
No. I think it's speculative. He could have had feet or wings or both. It just doesn't say. Maybe he had something else that we are not even thinking of, like a coiled spring like Tigger. I don't know.
But it says the curse had cursed him, and that's when he went to his belly.
Yes.
So,
Yep. So whatever he had, he had something. I wouldn't call it necessarily a dragon, because I think that they actually existed later. So I think it's whatever he had was taken away. But I don't think you can, unless there's verses somewhere that I don't know about, that I can't think of, that say he had legs or he had wings or he had both. He had something.
it was Satan, right, though, that did this.
Yeah.
He's the one that deceived, so he would be in his created form, wouldn't he?
Well,
Did he change it to deceive?
it seems like he changed. Yeah. Because he calls him a serpent, and if we go to like Ezekiel 28, he is described, 28, I think it's 28:12 where it starts. Yeah. So look at verse 13. Ezekiel 28:13. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, the carbuncle, and the gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes were prepared in thee of the day thou was created. So he had beautiful stones incorporated into him. He had musical instruments incorporated into him. So I think that he was not appearing to her in that form. It seems like he was appearing to her in whatever a serpent was at that time. Again, you got limited information on it. So.
I know. Question for Eve. How would she have known that childbirth caused pain if she had not already had children?
Well, that's part of the consequences. She wouldn't have had pain in childbirth if sin would have never entered the world. So God is informing her that there will be pain in childbearing. Now, if we go back to 3:16, God says unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow in thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to the husband, and he shall rule over thee. So sorrow to bring forth children. Now this is this isn't just a light, I think you're going to have problems with contractions and pain and things like that. I think there's much more to it. Yes, that is true. That would what we would call like the first level. Yes, that is true. But there's more to it. Go to Revelation chapter 12. In Revelation 12:1 it says, "There appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet." Now that goes back to Genesis 37, when Joseph had the two different dreams, told his brothers, and then told his brothers and his mom and dad. And Jacob realized that when he said the sun and moon, that was him and Rachel, that there was a reference to. We're getting rain. That is, what was Jacob's other name?
Israel.
Israel. Okay? So this woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Remember, he had 12 kids, boys, I should say. She being with child cried greatly, travailed in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. Now this is the same thing mentioned in Daniel 7. This is the beast system that has been around and is not just being revealed yet. His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. So the great dragon, when he fell, 1/3 of the angels went with him, became what we would call demons, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. So this goes all the way back to Bethlehem and the birth of Jesus. She brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God to his throne. So after his death, burial, and resurrection, he ascended up. The woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days, or 3.5 years. So this connects to Matthew 24:15, when he says, "When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, let him who read understand, flee, get out of there, run."
When he went to Egypt?
Well, here it's talking about a future event, that because this is a specific 3.5 years, and that's the second part of that 70th week of Daniel, the time of Jacob's trouble, where there's a place prepared for them. So they're going to, the believing Jews, when they see that abomination, they're going to flee into the wilderness and be protected.
So the woman is Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. So then when you go back and you read this curse, or this consequence, I should call it, back in Genesis 3:16, when it says, "Sorrow thou shalt bring forth children," it's talking about the whole labor pain, but also I think a future reference to there's going to be a huge sorrow when Christ is born. Remember Rachel weeping for her children because of all the other babies that were slain during the time of Jesus' birth. So there's just a lot to it. And then Revelation 12 talks about the sorrow that they're going to go through and have to run and hide and so on. So I think there's a lot to that. It also, I think, serves as a reminder that every time a woman has a child and the question comes up of, why does this hurt so bad? Because sin came into the world, and there's someone else that's born that's going to need a Savior.
Doesn't appear that animals go through the pain of childbirth, that,
Not as much, not like people. Now,
I mean, a bear could give birth to a cub that's a 1 pound.
yeah.
While she
Without even
sleeps.
knowing.
Yeah, I think that because of our selective breeding and trying to produce certain types, like when you get into dairy cattle, in that the focus is on milk producing. And sometimes there can be some problems, but that's because I believe that man has intervened in trying to get certain types of breeds. And you know how that is. You gain stuff, but you lose stuff. You know, the old hardy beef cattle can be out there in the middle of winter and be just fine. And
Not always.
well,
This little lady's gotten up a lot of times in the middle of the night because we had a cow coming in.
yeah. But, you know, what kind were yours?
Our beef cows.
Well, but what specific?
Those were always Herefords.
Herefords? Yeah.
We
So,
always, I had one time, I think I got up every night in the middle of the night for probably a week and a half, waiting for that little girl to come
yeah. But that's what but there again, you're talking about more of a specific beef, and not just, like dogs. You got the mutts, and they're pretty hardy compared to you start getting your specific selective breeds. And
in. But you know, not every,
Purebreds are never as hardy as mutts are.
right.
but you know, not every female has a lot of pain either.
No, there's some exceptions. Yeah, there's some exceptions. But in general, not too many women say, "Boy, that was fun."
Oh, I took care of one. She wasn't in labor very long.
Well, I had a cousin that was that way.
Yeah.
She stood up at her wedding and she was 7 months pregnant and you couldn't tell it. And she was at my aunt's house, not her mother, but her aunt. And my grandmother was there and she was saying, my back is sore, it hurts. And my aunt said, do you have your bag packed? And she said, yes. And she said, get it, we're going. And I had a friend that I worked with, his wife called him at work. She said, I'm ready. And he said, bye. And he was gone. And I said, wow. He said, the last one was born on the way into the hospital.
Yeah. But, and there are, some exceptions, but, in general. Did you have anything else?
Yes.
I have
Referring to
some.
Cain and Abel, when they brought the first sacrifice, how was Cain to know that he should have brought an animal and not what he grew from the ground?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. That one's comes up quite a bit. Starting off back up into chapter 3. If you break up chapter 3, you'll find that sin comes into the world. They disobey. They eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God calls out to sinful man. Then God confronts sinful man. Did you eat? Man confesses and admits that, yes, he disobeyed. He ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Then God gives a curse to the serpent. He gives consequences to man and woman for what they did. And then when he gives the curse to the serpent, there's also a promise there. So he gives a promise, he gives a commitment that what he's going to do. He gives them their consequences. And then after that, Adam does something very interesting. In verse 20, he says, Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. God changed her name. It was woman. When Adam saw her, she shall be called woman. She is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. She shall be called woman. When God calls out to her and says, God said to woman, and so on. So Adam hears what God is going to do, that someday a seed of the woman, well, there was only one, is going to someday have a descendant from her who's going to fix this mess, who's going to receive a bruised heel, who's going to bruise the head of the seed of the serpent, that he's going to take care of that. So Adam renames his wife, and the word Eve literally means then the mother of all living. So Adam is believing, he's trusting in what God had said. So then in verse 21, you have unto Adam and also to his wife did the Lord God made coats of skin and clothed them. So he kills an innocent animal, it dies in their place, it sheds its blood, and he uses that to cover their sin and their shame. Now, the sacrifice of an animal can never take away sin. It's a temporary covering. Adam is going to die physically later. I don't think he will experience the second death. I think he believed the second death being tossed in the lake of fire. But it shows the first animal sacrifice. So then when you get to Cain and Abel, Abel is a keeper of sheep. Well, why would you keep sheep? Because you didn't eat them. They were still vegetarians at the time. You would only keep sheep for sacrifice and clothing. That would be the only reasons to keep them. So they had the concept that something had to die in your place. Now, biblically speaking, if it doesn't have blood, it doesn't die. So you eat an apple and an apple doesn't die. It's not considered alive, biblical standards. That's why in the Garden of Eden, they could eat from any of the trees of the fruit, and that this is one of the things that atheists like to say, well, if they ate a banana, the banana died. Well, not biblically speaking, it's not dead. It wasn't alive.
It doesn't breathe.
Right. It doesn't have the breath of life. It doesn't have blood. It's not considered biblically alive. So you got to use the biblical terms and not what we consider life and death. Anyway, so Abel, being a keeper of sheep, and the standard is something has to die in your place. And bringing fruit and vegetables or whatever he brought, his own things, is not the same. The second thing is, Abel is a prophet of God. And a prophet would be giving man God's word, taking God's word and giving it to man. We know that from the New Testament when Jesus is rebuking the Pharisees and he says, which of the prophets have you not killed? From the blood of righteous Abel. So he's saying the prophets from Abel to Zechariah, son of Berechiah. So he talks about those as being prophets. So when it goes through here, he talks to Cain and he says, he says the Lord had in chapter 4, verse 4, the Lord had respect to Abel and to his offering. Those are two things there. To Abel was coming by faith. We find that out from Hebrews 11. By faith, Abel offered a more excellent sacrifice. So Abel was coming by faith with the right sacrifice. And so God is setting a principle here for us to learn by, that it's not just coming by faith, it's do you have the faith in the right sacrifice? All kinds of people have faith, but if they don't understand the sacrifice that Jesus made, that faith is worthless. Okay? So then it says this, in verse 3 it says, or verse 5 it says, but to Cain and to his offering he had not respect. So Cain wasn't coming by faith. Cain didn't have the right sacrifice, the right offering. Cain is saying basically this: God, you should accept me because of what I've done. We would call that salvation by works. Not salvation by faith and not having the right sacrifice or offering. Cain was very wroth, his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, why are you wroth? So he's going to deal with his attitude to start with. Why is your countenance falling? If you do well, shall thou not be accepted? Now, so that is the goal. They wanted to be accepted by God. Abel comes by faith. He has the right offering. He is accepted. God said he had respect to Abel and his offering. Cain does not come by faith. He comes by works. And he doesn't have the right offering. And God rejects him and his offering. And he simply says, if you do what you're supposed to do, if you come by faith, if you bring the right offering, you will be accepted. So he knew what he should have done. He had the understanding from the very beginning when God killed an innocent animal to cover Adam and his wife. His brother raises sheep. And like I said, the only reason to raise those would be to sacrifice them or to put clothes on. And so he had the knowledge to do what was right, to do what God required. And then he makes this interesting statement. Unto thee shall be his desire. It says, well, sin lies at the door. So if you do well, you'll be accepted. But if you do not, if you don't come to me by faith, if you don't have the right offering, sin lies at your door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Now this is the second time that phrase has been used. It was used when God spoke to the woman and said, in sorrow you shall bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So this is the consequence of sin in the marriage life. That the woman when it says desire there, he's not talking about a good desire a woman should have for her husband. It's talking a desire to be over her husband. And the husband is going to try to rule over her. Not lead, not love, but to rule. There's a huge difference. And you see that with Cain and sin. Sin's desire is for you. Sin wants to rule over you. And you're going to try to have to rule over sin. And that's no good because you've forsaken the right way. You won't come to me by faith. You won't come with the right offering. Therefore, you're going to be struggling with sin the rest of your life. And you see that in the unbelieving world. Not that you don't see it in the Christian world, that we don't do the same things, but we have the option not to. Okay? But in the unbelieving world, that's what you see. Either sin is ruling over that person, and they're just letting sin rule in their life, or they're trying to fight sin and stay away from those things, and it's a battle they keep losing. And so it's the same thing in the marriage. You have a power struggle between who is going to call the shots. Yeah.
Little question. The courts of blood, you're going to have the most important thing created, probably blood.
Mm-hmm.
And we were discussing this morning, mosquitoes. I guess a female mosquito needs blood to have babies.
Yes.
And I remember listening to BCY, and I don't know if I was zoned out, but they started talking about mosquitoes, I missed it. Why did God create mosquitoes when they're just a pain?
Oh, I didn't know to swat those things.
Yeah, the food.
Well, it's looking at things through our world today that sin has come into the world. The world was much different before the flood and before sin.
I take it they're dependent on blood.
Not necessarily. They are now. Okay, just like before, did the little Bambi with the spots, did they have to worry about the lion or the coyote or the wolf?
Yes.
Not before sin. Everything just ate
Oh, before this, yeah, it was-
before sin. They didn't have to worry about that. But after sin came in the world, now they got a problem. They're going to get chowed, right? So before sin came into the world, what did mosquitoes do? I don't know. Did bees?
Would they have been a pollinator, just for the flowers, maybe?
I have no idea. Well, the males do. The males eat plant. Males don't suck your blood. Just the women that are blood suckers.
Should know.
But anyway, and then you have the time of the flood. Now, so you remember how the Bible says the earth was in the water and out of the water, and then there was an expanse between those layers? So there's a guy named Carl Baugh. He's a scientist down in Glen Rose, Texas, and he did some experiments on what if you could recreate like that canopy theory in a small scale, and what effect would it have on animals? And it had a crazy effect on animals. He had this certain type of trout that's supposed to be really aggressive, and he had it in the aquarium, and he had birds, and he had all this other stuff in there. And you could throw minnows into the water, and the trout would ignore them, wouldn't even eat them. The birds would eat plants, and the birds would be over, and their droppings would go in the water, and the trout, through their gills, would get their nutrients just through that, and they didn't even eat the minnows. So what was it like when the whole world was like that? It's hard to say what things were like, just like poisonous snakes get brought up a lot. Well, why were there poisonous snakes? Well, I don't know if they were poisonous. We don't know. Everything changes with sin and the flood. So, okay,
Yes,
yeah, Bill.
I have a question. Back in Ezekiel 28,
Yes.
apparently I didn't understand what we were discussing in it through this. So could you please do a brief explanation?
Okay, so one of the questions came up about, well, did Satan always look like a serpent? Okay, and so in here, Ezekiel 28 verse 13, it says, "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God." So this is before sin.
Okay, we can stop right there. Are we talking about Satan here?
Yeah,
Doesn't say that, it says we're talking about
It will-
the entire.
it will if we keep going.
Okay,
Though then every precious stone, and then the tabrets and pipes and all that, in the day that thou was created. So we also see that he's a created being. He's not like God, he is created. Thou art, now verse 14, thou art the anointed cherub, that's a type of angel, that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mount of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created till iniquity was found in thee. So he was a created cherub. He was beautiful. He had literal stones that in his body, I guess we would call it. I don't know what else to call it. Musical instruments.
well, I can see where a lot of this pertains to Satan.
What mountain was the mountain of God?
It's a good question. It's hard to say because, this is during the time.
To the burning bush, where that was located?
It could be, but it doesn't, as far as I know, that's the only Mount of God that's talked about in Scripture. But it just doesn't.
I was just trying to figure out
What are the stones of fire?
how this pertain to Satan, because I don't see any place in here where it says it does. It's talking about the king of Tyre,
Yeah. So,
who liked to think that he was a god. I realize that too.
yeah. In prophecy, they call it like a double reference. So, you're referring to one thing, but then you veer off and you start referring to another thing.
And the cherub, is that the little ones?
No, those don't exist. The little babies with the wings kind of a thing.
So Michelangelo's
Yeah.
creation.
It seemed like there was a big one and a smaller one, whatever they were.
Yeah. It's just
So there's cherubs,
There's-
seraphim, and
spirit beings, I think they're called, or something like that.
how many types of angels are there?
Yeah, as far as I know, that there's at least 3 specific types. Some have 4 wings, some have 6.
They're all the same size, roughly.
Small, medium, and large. I don't know.
So can Satan appear to people physically at all? Can he change his?
Yeah. So we got to go to 2 Corinthians 11, I believe.
Which,
2 Corinthians 11. Second Corinthians 11, verse 14. It says, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. So he's not an angel of light anymore. He has to transform himself into an angel of light.
I mean, could it be that when all this happened, that the physical, what we see is Cass and Becky, they didn't care about? Because I know a lot of times when Jesus came back, he seemed like a different appearance. They didn't recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that wasn't a big thing among spirit people that didn't really care what they looked like. And when the 2 angels came in Revelation, and people were guessing who they are and stuff,
Yeah.
it seems like they would have recognized and known by appearance, but maybe they came back not looking the same.
We don't.
Maybe we put a value on that, but they didn't.
They're definitely people because they get put to death. So they got physical bodies. They get put to death. So they're not angels. They get resurrected, and raptured. As far as their identity goes, we debate on it. We discuss it, and it's fine. They do similar miracles to Moses and Elijah. So they're like the 2 top contenders of who they are. Enoch always gets thrown in there too in the mix. And it may be 2 out of those 3. It may just be 2 Jewish people that are similar to Moses and Elijah. And the argument for that is when Jesus was talking to his disciples and they said, why do they say Elijah must come? And he says, well, Elijah did already come if you can handle it. And he was referring to John the Baptist. He came in the spirit of Elijah.
Okay.
Now, so will that be the same with the 2 witnesses? Could be. Could it literally be Moses and Elijah? Could be. And like I said, people can throw Enoch into that mix. I don't keep him as a as an example, but some people do.
Well, just out of curiosity, you had always told me that everything in the Bible has a reason.
Yeah.
Why didn't Jesus come back to all the people just like he left? So they had familiarity with his face and all that. Why did he? Was there a lesson to be taught there when?
So he did appear to over 500 of the believers.
With his normal face.
Yeah. He like, I think you're referring to like Luke 24, when two of his disciples are leaving, they were in unbelief, and he appears to them and he talks with them, and then he rebukes them and gives them a big Bible lesson. And finally, towards the end, they recognize that it's him when he breaks the bread.
Now, wasn't there something where they're in the boat and they're not catching any fish? Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but they didn't recognize the guy on shore, which was him, until he did special things.
Right.
So they believed in him, but there must have been a purpose.
I'm sure there was. Like I said, I think that everything in the Bible has a reason. Sometimes we don't know them, but guarantee it's there for a reason. And God.
Just probably to teach a lesson that if he came back and they recognized him, he couldn't teach that same lesson.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so let me back up, give you more context to 2 Corinthians 11. In verse 13 it says, "For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ." So he warns about false teachers who's going to look like actual apostles. Okay? So false apostles, false teachers, looking like real apostles, real teachers. Then it has, and he says, "And no marvel, for Satan himself transformed into an angel of light." He's not an angel of light, but he wants to appear to be an angel of light. You know, if you've heard things like the Illuminati, that's what they're trying to say is we're the enlightened ones. You know, things like that. When you, people that get involved in Freemasonry, same kind of thing. When you get up high enough, then you realize when you get enlightened enough, then you realize who they're actually worshiping. They're worshiping Allah, Satan. So the ones on the lower levels don't realize that as they keep going through their initiations and things. So, okay.
I just find it kind of interesting that those who are at a lower level are involved in doing a number of good things for the rest of us.
Yeah. Yep. Shriners hospitals, you know. And what are they there? When you get up high enough in the Masons, you can become a Shriner. Here's your red fez with the crescent moon on it and the sword. You know, and the whole history of that was when they killed a bunch of Christians and dipped their hat in blood. That's why they're red. You know.
And does that half moon thing, does that mean something?
Yeah, that's Islam.
Islam.
Yeah. Yeah, they worship Allah. Yeah. When it comes to end times, you have the what we call the beast system. I think that is Islam. You know, even in Christian circles, they focus so much on the Western side of the Roman empire. That, you know, all your like Left Behind movies and stuff like that. You notice how there's no Islam or anything mentioned? It's all Western, Western, Western. I think they've been deceived. I think they've missed that.
They probably, all them sultans over there probably finance the movies.
They do finance a lot.
So they
Till we get that shit built.
push the blame away.
And we give them money.
Yeah,
In their minds, they believe, like we believe, we're on the right side. If you flip that over, they actually believe they're on the good side.
yeah, yep.
Somehow they're warped into thinking they're on the right team, the good team.
Oh, I think it's gonna. I think we're getting set up. So, see, the more you have immorality and you have woke and you have all this stuff. Now, as Christians, we see that and think those people are just laden in their sin and they need to be set free by Christ. Okay? Unbelievers, okay, that see that and think it's don't want anything to do with it are just like, that's just crazy, you know? And then there's Islam that says, no, we need to eliminate, that's the immorality that this world has become, we need to get rid of it. And so I think there's going to be a huge attraction to that because, you know, step out and think of an unbeliever. The Christian goes, yeah, they shouldn't do that. And then Islam says, we're going to make it happen. And I think there's going to be a big attraction to a younger generation that's going to blame the Jews for everything, that's going to see the Christians as just weak, you know, especially the modern church. You know, the pastors get up there and just talk about fluff and they look all feminine and everything like that. And then here's Islam, where if anyone watches the UFC, pays any attention to the MMA fighting, what's some of the strongest guys out there? Muslims. Oh yeah. And so if you step back, guys who get fed up with all this feminized garbage, all this woke stuff, who's got the answer to it? Well, Islam, you just kill them all. And it's very much focused on a guy's it benefits guys, you know.
Male dominance.
Yeah.
Yeah, women have no value.
Women have no value. You get 4 wives, you know.
And it just seems like it's going fast.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes, okay, maybe because of technology, we're seeing more and more of it too.
They're winning
Oh my
elections,
gosh,
right?
look at
Like,
Dearborn,
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah. 45,000 marching the streets saying death to America.
Well, it's someplace, I think in Texas too, it's, you would think Texas is supposed to be this
Yeah, right.
big patriotic state.
Yes.
Their goal is to take, they're gonna turn Texas. That's their goal.
And
And the rest of the country.
it's just a matter of time.
Take over from the inside.
When you have 4 wives and average of 8 kids per wife, and not half, but a good portion of America can't figure out if they're a boy or a girl,
Right.
much less raise a good family, you know. Just a matter of time.
And our birth rate for Americans are decreasing.
It's under 2. It's under 2. You can't maintain a society with that. There was a documentary, a little clip years ago. This would have been probably, I think, 15 years ago. That talked about the only reason that ours was the 2.1 where you need to maintain a society was because of immigration. It wasn't because of our birth rates. So Gaddafi said this would have been probably 20 years ago. that they're going to be able to take over Europe without firing a shot just because of the birth rate.
Yeah, that's happening right now.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah. But he saw it coming 20 years ago.
I can remember one time I saw on TV Khrushchev was before Congress, and he slapped his shoe on the table and said they were going to take over without firing a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So we see what's coming.
Americans look at it as a big chore to vote. In any given election, about 10% of the population elects all the politicians.
Yeah.
The rest of them don't vote.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys know who Ted Nugent is, so he's a big hunter, and he started an organization, I can't remember what it's called, Hunters of America or something that. But it's basically like, with all the people that buy a hunting license that are hunters, the percentage that actually vote is extremely low, which is ridiculous. Hunter Nation, I think that's what it's called. And their goal is to try to get these hunters to realize if you don't start voting, you're going to start losing your rights, you know. And it's a big enough block of people that if they would vote, they could change the elections, you know, but they just don't do it.
You think Satan has a ability to make people lethargic as far as
Sure.
he can actively stop things from happening?
I think he does it through a lot of things.
Distractions.
Right. You know, we have three enemies: the world, the flesh, and the devil. Well, he's saying that there's the flesh. We can realize that's something from within myself that desires self and things like that. Satan, we understand that he can tempt us and he can do this. But what's the world? It's the satanic world system. Remember, Adam lost the dominion over the world. Satan is the god of this world, the prince of the power of the air. So it is designed to keep people away from God, to keep people away from doing. That's why the Bible says, you know, love not the world, neither the things in the world. What's he saying? He's not saying the people, because we're to love people and share the gospel and build them up. He's not saying that. God loved the people. It's this world system.
Now, his little minions have the ability to brainwash people like Satan would, all of his demons.
So the brainwashing is basically presenting one side of an argument without any counter. You know, so for years, and still today in public schools, intelligent design is not going to get mentioned. So it's one-sided. So if you just go through a regular public school education with nothing else, not parents that teach otherwise or a church or anything like that, you're going to just, well, yeah, the world is, you know, the universe is 4.6 billion years ago, and the earth is this million years, and man came across this, and blah, 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 blah. Because that's all you've been told.
Well, I wonder, like, the concept of liberalism, where it gets to the extreme of Berkeley and all that, Madison, where they don't allow opposing views. Satan is not omnipresent. He might be out in Berkeley influencing somehow wherever he does it. If that's going on in Madison at the same time, does his demon minions have the ability to do what he's doing out in Berkeley here?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay,
Yeah. He can't be everywhere, but,
right.
and we don't know, you know, a third of the angels. Well, how many angels were there?
That's the big thing. How much can they affect? Can they make you think something that's not true?
They can't make me think something that's not true, no. They can try to deceive you into believing something, but they can't make you.
How do they do that? What are their methods?
Oh, it's really easy. Satan loves to just twist scripture a little bit, just a little bit, misapply it. And so we're right here in 2 Corinthians 11, so he's got false teachers, false apostles. He's got verse 15, therefore it's no great thing if his ministers be transformed into ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. He has ministers, people that are literally heads of seminaries, heads of churches, pastors, all of those
Do they,
that are his servants.
Yeah,
is it
it's-
unbeknownst to them?
I think that there's both.
They don't.
I think you have the useful idiots, and then you have people that know exactly what they're doing.
They know they're working for Satan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think there's both. So, like, say you were head of a seminary. Who would you hire as teachers then? If you're a Satanist, head of a seminary,
People who think like you do.
yeah, you want fellow Satanists in there. Okay, now all the students that go through, they're not necessarily Satanists, but they're going to pick up on all your false teaching, and then they're going to go spread it. They're the useful idiots.
That's like that. Guy that did all the mathematics for the Bible.
Oh, Ivan Pan.
Yeah, when he got all done, all the stuff that he wrote, he presented it to all these heads of these seminary colleges, and nobody would basically even look at it.
Yeah.
And said, how can you be so stupid? Ignorant, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
You should at least look at it to see what it says, and if you don't believe it, all right, that's one thing. But if you don't even look at it, how will you ever know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, logic tells me, even if you work for something, I'd be curious of what their
Yes.
views on
Yeah.
why they're backing it. I always think that about liberal subjects. Why do they think the way they do?
Right. Just like the Bereans. You listen carefully to what that person's presented, then you compare it with Scripture to see if it's so. And people that get into that mindset, they don't want to even listen to what you're presenting. You know? So, yeah. You know, the EPA. Now, some things I think that they go overboard on, but there's some things that are good, you know. So, and the problem is, typically, if you're in a conservative camp, when you hear EPA, like, oh, they're just a bunch of tree hugging, you know. But there is a certain amount of pollution that we should not allow, and I think that goes also into Food and Drug Administration. There are certain foods that we shouldn't be eating or saying like, oh no, that's fine, you can just put that in the food and it's no big deal. So, you know, you don't want to go from one ditch to another, you know, and to do that, I think you got to be careful, like you said, you listen and see, because there might be something good there, you know, that you don't want to just ignore or label and throw out.
These municipalities that are fining people for collecting rainwater.
Yeah, ridiculous.
They said that belongs to the municipality, that water that comes from the sky. You can't save it.
Yeah.
That just baffles me.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to find out why.
That probably has to do with money. If you're collecting the rainwater and using it for whatever, then you're not getting it through the meter to get charged.
That's what I was wondering.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, I will close in prayer then. Father, thank you for this time that we can come together and get into all kinds of different discussions And Lord, just ask that we would be the good Bereans and follow after you in all things and examine everything with Scripture. Thank you again for all that you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.